in this training, we're going to go over advanced PowerPoint or Keynote, whatever you use, and webinar presentation tips. These involve the slides, or if you're doing webinars, I'm going to give you strategies using the webcam and also common mistakes that people make. So pay attention to this: advanced presentation, PowerPoint, and webinar presentation tips. All right, so the first thing is, number one is, don't use the PowerPoint. I'm going to call it PowerPoint for now, even though I'm a Mac person. I use Keynote. I think a lot of people don't know what Keynote means, but everyone understands PowerPoint. Is that PowerPoint is the tool. Okay, don't let it be a crutch. So, okay, so what does it mean? Use your PowerPoint, I'm going to write this down, as a tool and not a crutch. And what I mean by that is, if you ever look at good speakers, do they use PowerPoints? They don't use PowerPoints. Okay, PowerPoints it's a tool to help you. So when a crutch means like something that actually hurts you as a presenter, when does it become a crutch? If you're reading from slides. So one tip is, you never read from slides. If the slides should be used as bullet points. Okay, so slides should be bullet points, and it shouldn't be something you're reading, right? And it shouldn't have too many words, because if there's too many words, what happens? What happens? What do you think the audience is going to do, your guest is going to do, or your downline is going to do if you have too many things on the slides? Well, what's going to happen? Let me ask you, what's going to happen if you have too many things going on the slide? They're going to be reading, right? And instead of listening and not paying attention, right? And when you present, you are presenting and selling them and sharing, right? They're not, it's not the slides. You're the one who's connecting the emotional appeal. You're the one, they're buying you, right? Everyone's buying, they're buying you, not a product. So if you have too many things on your slides, all of a sudden they're not even paying attention to you. And also they're writing down too much. I mean, how many of you have actually been to a training where people are copying notes, right? Or have you, I used to do this. Have you ever been to a presentation where there's a lot of stuff and you're copying notes, or you take pictures of the slides, right? Now we have phones, you're taking pictures of slides, but because you're doing that, you're not even paying attention. But you want people to be captured 100% attention, not by worrying about, oh, what am I missing on the slide? And people are so caught up about the slide or the words that they don't even get the big picture, right? So never read the slides. Slides should be bullet points. And make sure the audience is not reading the slides. Make sure audience is not reading and reading slides. Get them to pay full attention. So here's a formula to do that, right? And by the way, your presenter, and Jeanette, you brought a good point, like the presenter can't have passion for the audience when you're reading the slide, right? You're so worried about the slide. So this is the great rule, the 6x6 rule. When you're creating a slide, follow the 6x6 rule. And what does that mean? The 6x6 is very simple, and I follow this. It's really good. It's no more than 6 words. No more than 6 words per line. And no more than 6 lines per slide. Got it? You can actually flip them around here. Let me flip that around. It's no more than 6 lines per slide and no more than 6 words per line. So at the maximum, how many words should you have on a slide? The maximum, 36 words. Okay, 36. So 6x6, you can actually make it even shorter. That's the maximum you should go. Okay, maximum of 36 words. And generally, if you actually look at my trainings, it's much less than that. Okay, now what should you use instead of words? Okay, instead of words, you should use pictures, right? And simple pictures, and with 3 to 5 word headlines. Again, the slides should be your bullet points. You should never have, because when you put in too many words, again, people are reading and not paying attention. Use pictures. And remember, they say a picture is worth how many words? Right? A picture is worth 1,000 words. Right? We all know that. And you can say like a video is worth 1,000 pictures. Right? So make sure you're using, you're not putting too much words on there. Use pictures, and possible you can break it up and use videos as well. Okay, but don't ever. And if you're doing, the video should be short as well. If you're using video, like no more than 3 minutes, because people get bored right now. They get very short attention spans. Make them short videos. All right? Any questions about that? Okay, pretty clear, right? Now, if you're doing a webinar, here's a webinar strategy. If you're doing a webinar, generally you need to have your slides can contain more words. If you're doing a webinar, your slides can contain more words. Why is that? Why is that? Okay. Why is that? Why do you think in the webinar you can have more words? Right? Why is it a little bit different? Because people you're not in there in person, right? You have all the distractions. So are people listening on a webinar? Generally on a webinar, people listening? They're not listening. They could be doing other things. They could have a TV in the background. They could be multitasking, right? How many of you have multitasking on webinars? So they could be doing all type of things. So on a webinar, you want to put words. So you actually want them to read a little bit more than if it was a live presentation. Because if there's not enough words, people's attention may be up something else. But if you have the words there, they may say, oh, I'm actually missing out something. Let me take a look. All right? Does that make sense? All right. Another webinar tip is to give you webinar tips here. You always have to promote. Okay. If I've ever done a live webinar, you should always email day of, okay, and email or a text 1 hour before. So you should definitely email the person the day of, email, text 1 hour before. If you're doing a prospect, remember again, you can go refer to the training about confirming meetings. Always, you can call the person. Always call and confirm the night before if it's a one-on-one webinar. So I'm presenting, maybe you're expanding, like Donnie, you're expanding to a different area. You want to do a webinar. You always want to call the night before. You want to treat that then as if you're doing a one-on-one meeting. Okay, like you're treating it as like this offline. You want to call the night before and say, if I don't hear back from you by noon tomorrow, the webinar's canceled. You want to cancel on them before they cancel on you. You always want to call, confirm. And even if they confirm, you want to email or text them 1 hour before. Okay, all top online marketers do this. I do this. Right before the deadline, I do that. Now, for a training webinar, I normally don't do that. For a coaching webinar, but even times like a big webinar, like it's for a new audience that someone doesn't have a relationship with, they're new, or a warm market that's like a prospect. I always email or text 1 hour before. Now, if you're doing a presentation for your team, you may want to post on social media as well. 1 hour before. That'll remind people your presentation is coming up. Right? If you have a generic one, now I'm not telling you to spam everyone, but if just say you're doing a business presentation, you don't need to let people know about the company name. Whatever. Just like, hey, I'm doing a special business presentation. Make sure you get on there. If you're doing a training, just say you have a private team page, a team group. Make sure you're promoting it 1 hour before. Post it on social media. You can post on Twitter. Okay, Twitter you can actually should be promoting a couple times a day. So people ask me, how often can you tweet? You can tweet 7 to 20 times a day. Facebook, probably you can promote like 1 to 3 times a day at most, okay? Because afterwards it gets old. You don't want to be do too much promotion on your Facebook. Okay. Now, other webinar tips. Okay, if you are attending, just say you are doing, and if you're doing a webinar, make sure you do this. If your team is doing a webinar, then make sure you do this as well. So just say that your upline is doing a webinar. Okay, it's helpful. It's just say you're new in the business, your upline is doing a webinar, you meet the prospect, you can get the prospect to the webinar, right? And of course, you're going to show up on the webinar too. You're going to log in. But what's more important is, if you can, is you attend the webinar with someone else in person. So if you're bringing your prospect to a webinar, to business presentation webinar, you should attend the webinar together in person. Okay, what does that mean? That means if, for example, if I am with Bayer, I invited her, and she's going to attend a webinar with my mentor. My mentor's doing it. I am actually, obviously, I'm going to definitely log in, but if possible, preferable, I would, invite Bayer to my house, and we watch the webinar together, right? So why do I do that? Why do I invite her? A couple of reasons. When you do this, right? So you have prospect come to your house to watch together. Why? Number one is the person who prospect pays attention. Right? Also, closing much easier. Right? Afterwards, you can immediately grab your upline. You don't need to call her. Sometimes, after the webinar, they may leave, they may go to the bathroom, they may get distracted with children. Here, you are controlling the environment, okay? Because you are controlling the environment and prevent distractions. Does that make sense? Okay, you're controlling the environment, preventing distractions, and when they're at home, their dog can be bothering them, the children, they may use the bathroom, they may check Facebook, they may be multitasking, but when you're with them, control the environment. Now here's the tip. If the prospect's not comfortable, you can just grab dinner together. Just say, hey, we can eat dinner together, grab some food, and go watch the webinar together. Okay, you could offer food. People always come for free food, right? Just like a food, offer some free food, something simple to watch the webinar together. So normally the webinars are business presentations during the evening, right? So you can grab a bite with that person. So make it easy for that. But treat the webinar like a real presentation. Okay, that will increase attendance, and also closing is much easier. Now, after the presentation is over, do a quick three-way call with upline. Okay, do a quick three-way call with upline or downline and close the prospect. Again, if you're not sure about this, go back to the training I did with hotel meetings, right? That's the climax. The climax of the presentation is when after the close. So your prospect on the webinar may disappear. They may be busy. They may be taking a shower afterwards. You have to take care of the kids. But when they're with you, obviously, it's much easier. Now, if you're not with the prospect, still, right after the presentation, do a quick three-way call with the upline and close. You have to close. Don't wait till tomorrow. You got to call the prospect immediately after the presentation. Talk to prospect immediately after webinar presentation. All right? Okay. Now, another key to webinars is you want to keep the webinars interactive. Make webinars interactive. So even whether you're presenting a business opportunity or you're presenting doing a training, you want to keep it interactive. Like, for example, are these webinars fun? A lot of the trainings I do, like these webinars, are they fun? It's fun because it's interactive, right? And you want, definitely, one of the things you want to do is always monitor the chat box. The chat box is extremely important. And I would, there's, a lot of software I could recommend. Different softwares. I've actually did a lot of different webinar platforms. People ask me this all the time. Use Google Hangout or any meeting or all these different platforms. The best one, and also a lot of top online marketers use it. I've done different ones. The best one is GoToMeeting. Okay, GoToMeeting is the best because it's interactive, the chat, the most functionality, and it is cost a little bit more, but you get what you paid for. Okay, if you're doing a presentation, can you do it through Skype? Yes, but GoToMeeting I found it's just more convenient. It's good. You can also have the app for the phone. It's just way easier, more interactive. You have recording on. Also has the option to record. So if you ever do a good presentation, you'll always be recording the presentations. By the way, always record your presentations because you never know, if you do a good one, that could be the one that you can send to your downlines later to present, right? So you don't actually always have to do them live. That's another option. Okay. Here's a tip too. So you always record your webinar presentations for future purposes, right? So here's a tip. If you ever wanted to play a recorded webinar, so how many of you actually do webinars on a consistent basis, presentations or webinars? Or it could be a business presentation on a webinar, right? And I recommend the webinars sell very well, prospect very well. If you do a lot of them, or you are leaders here, you are going to be leaders, you'll be doing a lot of them later, okay? And if you're doing the same presentation over and over and over again, it can get old. It can definitely get old very fast. So one of the things you can do is record a webinar, okay? You can record a webinar, and afterwards, then so even if you do trainings, if you do similar trainings, what you do is you can actually have a webinar and you play the video. You play the video on the webinar, and people it look like a live webinar. Okay, that's a tip. Okay, so it doesn't mean that you totally disappear, but you can just play, like for example, the Mac, open up, it's a QuickTime file, press play, and the webinar will be playing. So your prospects think it's a live webinar, right? But what you do is you can actually doesn't mean you disappear, but you can monitor the chat. So that is also much easier, don't you think? Instead of having to do the same webinar over and over, you play a recording and then you just monitor the chat, right? So you can actually, this is a time you can actually multitask. You can actually use your phone, follow up with emails, touch base on Facebook, whatever you need to do, and you just every couple minutes look at the chat box every minute, and then you can answer questions. So this does not burn you out, especially if you're doing the same thing over and over again for anything. Okay, so play a recorded webinar for anything that's repeated over and over again. So for example, what are these? Could be obviously a business presentation. What else? It could be like a new distributor training, right? It's the same thing. Or specific product trainings that you're doing. Something that's done over and over again. That's why it's always good to record them. You never know. You have a good one, then you can use that. Okay, that will save you a lot of time and energy. Well, that's how we grew our businesses. Even back in the teleconference days, that's how I grew my business. We brought anyone who's interested in the business, we brought them to a three-way call. They're dialed in, and it was a 25-minute presentation with 4 of the top earners, 4 diamond directors. They presented it, but it was a recording, and we will listen in. And then afterwards, we answer questions, and that's how we signed up a lot of people doing that. Okay, the recorded presentations are the same thing over and over again. Another good thing is that if you do that recorded webinar, it's the same presentation, and you're down to hearing the same thing over and over again, they will learn how to present because they're going to follow what you're doing. All right, another tip for webinars is when they get started, when you start, you always acknowledge the audience. Acknowledge the audience and ask where they are from. So I would ask, hey, where are you from? Jennifer, where are you from? I say, we have Linda. Anyone from Canada here? Anyone from Mexico here? Anyone from Singapore here? Anyone from Malaysia here? I would always acknowledge. I always ask people. So here's the one thing you can start. Hey, welcome everyone. We see a lot of people on here. I love to meet new friends. Can anyone just type in where you're from? I'd love to see, how many countries we have here. And people will start typing, or where you're from, what city you're from. If you're the national, what city you're from? People, I'm from Wichita, Kansas. I'm from New York City. I'm from Los Angeles. I'm from, Wyoming. I'm from Omaha, Nebraska. So you get people to type. And why is that important when you first start off? Is you want to encourage engagement. And you always want to encourage engagement. Right? Engagement is the key. Engagement prevents people from multitasking. Engagement keeps people focused. Engagement keeps people paying attention. Or you're asking questions. Now, if you're not engaging them at the beginning and all of a sudden in the middle start asking them questions, they may not do anything, right? So you want to train them to engage. You want to train them to use the chat box. Right at the beginning, hey, where are you from? Tell me where you're from. Right? So you let them know this is going to be a two-way dialogue thing. This is not you just sitting at the computer falling asleep. I'm going to call you out. We're going to engage. Okay, that is very important to set. Okay, set the precedent early on. Set early on by asking people to type out Now, if you are doing a training, you always acknowledge the people. Always acknowledge people feel good, right? Let me ask you, when we start these trainings, I always acknowledge you. Doesn't it feel good when I acknowledge every one of you? Or, for example, I remember where you're from, right? Doesn't it feel good? Like, I do it every week, but it still feels good. I mean, I got acknowledged many times this week. I felt good, right? So like Amanda from Sydney, right? Or Jeanette from Malaysia, feel good. And so do the same thing with your team. Amy from Singapore, right? So it also, by doing that, like Jeanette from Malaysia or Amy from Singapore, it builds your credibility, authority too. You build your authority. Wow, we have all these people. And if you're not global, you can do it. Hey, we have Donnie from Tennessee. We have Jenna from Long Beach, California, right? It's you like to be called out, and I'm telling you, people love recognition. I love recognition. Like Linda, you said, you listen for it each week. It just feels good to be acknowledged. So you're not like, oh, I'm just listening in. Does Simon even know I'm on there? Or am I wasting my time there? It feels good, right? Oh, it makes people pay attention too. So when you do this at the beginning, right, and when you ask for people where they're from, acknowledge them. It sets the precedent that I may call on you later on throughout the presentation. So whether you're a prospect, I may ask you for questions, right? Instead of just letting people know this is going to be a two-way conversation, not you just sitting in the computer and it's going to be like a talk presentation, okay? You're letting people know, and these are all subtle NLP, subconscious things. I'm letting you know immediately. I'm going to call you out. Like, Kershaw, I may ask you questions, right? I mentioned people's names, so you make everyone feel that they're part of the training. It's not just you listening there and hearing me talk. So it's very important. It's just like when you do a one-on-one presentation. So it's funny, you're typing and you feel happy. These are all things like the human psychology. We all love to be recognized. You understand, right? Everyone loves being recognized. It feels good, and you're letting people know, hey, this is two-way conversation. I may call you out later on, and you're setting the precedence. So make sure you pay attention. Oh, it's a feel-good thing too, and you do it already. Whether it's home meetings, especially hotel meetings, where you make sure the speaker calls out one or two people, everyone else is on their toes. So, am I going to be the next one that's going to be called on? Okay, so that's advanced tip. Make sure you always start out that way. Hey, when we get on, I just want to see who's on here. That's why every training I start off like that. Okay, I always say, hey, who's on here? Do I see any familiar faces, new friends? And get people to type in. Right? So, next is, you want to keep the webinar short too, okay? Keep the webinar short. And if you ever do a webinar training for your first one, maybe 30 minutes, 45 minutes. Don't, even these the insider trainings I do are 90 minutes long. If you're new, you're not going to be doing 90 minutes. It takes tremendous amounts of skill to do. And I'm not saying I'm good, but it takes a lot of practice to be able to do a 90-minute webinar to hold people's attention. When I first started, I tell you, I couldn't even hold people's attention for 20 minutes. Okay, so it takes time. And what do you think holds people's attention? What holds people's attention? How do you get the audience to really pay attention? How do you do that? What do you think? How do you make it interesting? But engagement, exactly, like what I just did, right? I'm asking questions, and you're like Hector, Hector and Bea, Amy, like you're typing in there, right? Exactly what I did by asking questions. Okay, again, this is whatever you do online, and Mandy said asking questions. So whatever you are doing offline, you should be doing online as well. It's actually more important online on the webinars than offline, and when you're doing offline, people can see you, but here people don't see you, so they really need to do it. Okay, you need to. So keep the webinar short and you make it interesting. Okay, keep webinar short and interesting. Another big important tip is use a webcam. Webcam is really important. Okay, like the trainings I do, if it wasn't for the webcam, it would not be as effective. You have to use the webcam. Get other people to be on the webcam as well. Why? Number one, when you're in the webcam, it holds you accountable, right? You are not slacking. It holds you accountable. Okay, holds you accountable. So I can be on board. I can't be picking my nose or falling asleep. It makes me. It also makes you a better presenter. Okay, it makes it more personal. It makes me like a real presenter. I'm not just speaking to a computer. I'm speaking to a crowd. Right now, make sure you get audience on the webcam. Because when you get the audience on the webcam, it's more of a one-on-one. It makes you a much better presenter. The more people you can get on the webcam, the better a presenter you'll be, because you'll be interacting with them. It's not just talking to a computer. I never feel I'm just talking to a computer or to a mic. I feel like I'm talking to someone. And to build this business, remember, is high touch. It's a high touch business. So make sure you do that. Okay, get the audience on the webcam. And it was such a big thing that we, I'll just share with you. A go-to-meeting is a go-to-webinar. There's two differences. Okay, go-to-meeting, go-to-webinar. On go-to-webinar, I believe you can't use a webinar. You can't use a webcam. Okay, you can't use it. The audience can be on a webcam. But on go-to-meeting, you can. And we upgraded and paid extra money just for that functionality, because the webcam makes it a much better experience. Especially if you're doing especially doing trainings. If you're doing trainings with leaders, I always want them to get on the webcam, because it makes it more personal. And it also makes sure they are paying attention. You're checking on them, right? And when they're nodding, you're calling them out. It makes the presentation way, way better, right? Another thing, the important thing is the meeting after the meeting. If you're with your prospect, you may have to meet with them afterwards, okay? Right after the presentation. That's another benefit. If you're doing a webinar and they come to your house, you have product samples to show them, right? You can show them samples, and you can close them right there. When you meet with them, you can close them right there, all right? Now, another thing with the webinar is you can, and we did this, okay, when I was growing out in different places, different countries. Okay, and I did that in Malaysia. We didn't do it in the Philippines because the internet wasn't that good, but we did it in Malaysia, where if you have an upline presenting, you can don't just get people that are webcam, okay, or the webinar. You invite people to your house. So you hold a home meeting where prospects watch business presentation, right? So your home meeting with prospect watch a business presentation. So instead of everyone's watching, come to my home, but instead of you presenting, you can put it on your computer and people can watch it. All right. Now here's a tip: you don't need a projector. This is a cool thing. One thing that I recommend, you use Apple TV. Apple TV, which HDMI TV. That you can save you money for projector. So you don't even need a projector. If you have like 10 people in your home, you don't need a projector. Just get an Apple TV, or I think Google, whatever the Google thing that you just connect the HDMI cable, and you can stream, and then all of a sudden your laptop will be on the big screen and people can watch the webinar. So your upline can be presenting, or maybe you're out in the city, you're presenting you're going to a new country. Or like Donnie, for example, you want to expand out Tennessee, you have a group in another state. You can that leader can invite everyone to the house. You do the webinar. That person has Apple TV and computer. Have it up there, and you can see the whole webinar on the big screen. Okay, you don't need to project anymore. Then all you have to do, by the way, that's also good for traveling too. As a tip, if you ever travel to other people's house, you want to do a presentation, just bring your Apple TV. It's so tiny, it's small. You put it in your bag. You don't need to lug around a projector anymore. All right, so use Apple TV with HDMI TV that connects. And again, I think you can use the Google TV as well. That works. Okay, another thing, if you're doing trainings, if you're doing a training, you can use Skype as well for trainings. So if you have an upline, right? Upline wants to for special upline training. All right, so and I've done this so many times back in the Philippines. I was going around the Philippines, their leaders are doing a training, for like an hour and a half training, and they want me to speak. So I would go there, and they didn't have GoToMeeting there, right? But there was Skype. They'll put me on Skype, and I will talk to them. I'll present to them. And they basically put me, actually, that time was before Apple TV. They had a projector. They'll project me, put it on a big screen, and I'll do like a 10, 15-minute training to them. And that's another thing you can do. This is these are the keys to growing long distance, okay? But if it was a webinar or everyone was watching at the house, it wouldn't be effective. But the leader gets everyone to his home, and then I'll talk to that leader. Okay, I actually done that many, many times. Very effective. Okay? And there's a couple of action steps for you. Want to go over your current slides? You definitely go over your current slides, your presentation. Do you have too much steps? Okay, it's text. So action steps. Go over your slides. Is there too much text and info? Okay? If it's too much, you're confusing people. You want to keep it simple. Okay? Follow the 6x6 rule. And you can test out, do your first webinar. Do your first webinar, test it out to prospect. Now, if you live in a big city, in like Mexico City, where if people have a decent internet and you don't want to travel, do a presentation on the webinar or do a Skype presentation. Test it out. You filter prospects. If they're interested, then you can go meet them one-on-one. Okay? So those are things that save you a lot of time. And once you're comfortable doing a training webinar, like everyone who has a leader here should be doing training webinars, right? Think about it. How do you get people to engage more? How do you get people to engage more? And one of the formats, remember to keep it simple and short. Don't go for if you never did webinars before, don't go for an hour. Most people cannot pay attention for an hour. The shorter, the better. And if you can have a webcam option, definitely use the webcam. All right. So any questions? Any questions? This has been helpful? Okay, so I want you to start thinking about how you can use this. Whether you're doing a Skype presentation, Skype meeting, and remember, the key is the webinar, the webcam, and keep it personal. Okay, keep it personal, high touch. And it's the face-to-face. So even whatever I do, I like the webcam so I can see the person. It makes it way, like even Donnie, when we talk, I know how you look like, you're a real person. It makes it way better. You know how I look like. Actually, you do know how I look like, but just talking in person makes it more personal. So that wraps up this training. Just to give you some advanced presentation tips on PowerPoint and webinars. Okay, they're really effective tools, but keep them simple. Go over your slides and make sure there's not too much text, not too much info, and then think about doing a webinar. Do a webinar and use this technology to present to your prospects. And again, the cool thing about a webinar is you can record. That's a huge. If you're doing a lot of the same trainings, learn to take advantage of technology, repurpose it. Anything that you should always have the idea. If you're going to do something once, how can you do it? If you have to do it again, how can you do something once and never have to do it again? Okay, that's a better way. How can you do something once and never have to do it again? Record it, and the next time, maybe if it's a good recording, you can use it for later. Okay, so that wraps up this training, and go make it happen. Oh, so great question is one question before we wrap up is: do you use GoToWebinar, Skype, or Google Hangouts? I like GoToMeeting the best. Okay. GoToMeeting, Skype for one-on-one. If you have to present, GoToMeeting's the best because sharing the screen's way easier than Skype. Google Hangouts, sometimes you have to need a Google Plus account. Some people are confused about that. GoToMeeting, simple. I send them a link. I found that that's to be the easiest to do. Okay, a GoToMeeting would be a little bit more expensive, but you get what you pay for. Any meeting is free, but it also doesn't perform well. I mean, I just did any meeting the other day with someone where the audio was, you're going to talk to Sue about that. She did any meeting and it didn't work out well. Okay, and it's just like the bad audio. People weren't seeing it. It was just you get what you pay for. You really get what you pay for, and if you have a good prospect, it's just not. To me, it's just you find a good leader. It's just not worth it you may have a really successful person ready to join your business gets turned off because there's too much technical issues for getting a meeting. So again, I don't make any money for GoToMeeting, but we've been using for over 3 years. That is the best what I recommend. All right, that wraps up this training. So make sure you go take action on what you just learned.